The Galactic Trade Station. Nexus 7 hummed with the voices of 1,000 species, each conducting business in their own peculiar way. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the crowded marketplace, her simple gray uniform standing out among the elaborate robes and biomechanical suits of the other delegates. She paused at a small stall where a Catherian merchant was arguing with what appeared to be a debt collector. The Catherian, barely 3 feet tall with delicate butterfly-like wings, trembled as the hulking Vorthan enforcer loomed over him. The collector's 4 arms gestured menacingly, while his translator device crackled with threats about unpaid shipping fees. "Please, I just need another rotation to gather the credits," the Catherian pleaded, his wings fluttering nervously. "My family's medicine shipment was delayed, and I had to choose between paying you and keeping my daughter alive." The Vorthan's response was a growl that needed no translation. Sarah had seen this scene play out countless times across the galaxy. The strong preyed on the weak, and the weak had no choice but to accept their fate. Most species viewed this as the natural order of things, but humans were different. Sarah stepped forward, her hand reaching into her credit pouch. "How much does he owe?" The Vorthan turned all 4 of his predatory eyes toward her. 5,000 credits, human. This is not your concern." 5,000? Sarah counted out the credits without hesitation. "Here, his debt is cleared." The Catherian's compound eyes widened in disbelief. "Human, I cannot repay this kindness. My entire shop makes barely 100 credits per cycle." Sarah smiled gently. "I'm not asking for repayment. Sometimes we help because it's the right thing to do." The Vorthan snatched the credits and stalked away, muttering about soft-hearted humans. The Catherian introduced himself as Zeptai, a seller of rare crystals and information. He bowed deeply, his wings creating a shimmering display. "The Catherian people have a saying," Zeptai whispered. "A favor given freely creates a bond stronger than the heaviest chains. I will not forget this, Sarah Chen." Sarah patted his shoulder gently. "Just take care of your daughter, Zeptai. That's all the thanks I need." As she walked away, Sarah didn't notice the small device Zeptai activated, or the way his nervous demeanor suddenly shifted to something more calculating. The Catherians were known throughout the galaxy for their information networks, and Zeptai was no ordinary merchant. 3 months later, Sarah received an urgent message on her personal communicator. It was from Zeptai, and it contained coordinates to a location deep in neutral space, along with a single line of text. "The favor is ready to be returned." The coordinates led her to a hidden asteroid base, where Zeptai waited with a group of other Catherians. Their delicate appearance was deceiving. Sarah soon learned they were members of the Catherian Intelligence Consortium, one of the most secretive information-gathering organizations in the galaxy. "Your people fascinate us," Zeptai explained as he led her through corridors filled with advanced monitoring equipment. "Most species perform favors expecting immediate compensation or future leverage. Humans seem to genuinely help without calculation. This makes you either the most naive species in the galaxy or the most dangerous." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous?" Zeptai's wings fluttered with what she was learning to recognize as amusement. "We have been studying human behavior for decades. Your species has an unusual trait. You remember every kindness shown to you and every slight against you. More importantly, you remember kindness shown to others even when you receive no benefit." They entered a vast chamber where holographic displays showed trade routes, political boundaries, and what appeared to be troop movements across several star systems. Zeptai gestured to the central display. 3 weeks ago, the hegemony began mobilizing their fleet. Our sources indicate they plan to conquer the independent trading worlds, starting with the Terran colonies in the Outer Rim. The official declaration will come in 72 hours, giving human forces no time to prepare adequate defenses. Sarah felt her blood run cold. The hegemony was a coalition of militant species that viewed humans as weak and unworthy of their territory claims. They had been making increasingly aggressive moves toward human space for months. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. Zeptai's compound eyes reflected the light from the displays. "Because 5,000 credits saved my daughter's life. Because your people showed mercy to the Altarian refugees when their world was destroyed, even though it cost you strategic resources. Because humans rescued the Deltan research ship from the black hole's event horizon, sacrificing your own vessel in the process." He paused, his voice becoming softer. "The Catherians have been keeping records, Ambassador Chen. Every act of kindness your species has performed, every life saved, every hand extended in friendship. The list is extensive." Sarah stared at the data streams flowing across the screens. "What exactly are you proposing?" "The Catherian Consortium has decided to call in every favor owed to humanity. We have been making certain communications to certain individuals across the galaxy. Old debts, forgotten kindnesses, lives saved that were never properly acknowledged. Your people may not keep score, but we do." The implications of what he was saying began to dawn on Sarah. "You're talking about a coalition, the largest volunteer defense force in galactic history, species you helped years ago, decades ago, some who received aid before humans even achieved faster-than-light travel. They are all coming to repay what they owe." Zeptai activated another display, showing ship signatures and fleet positions. "The Mjolnir Engineering Guild still remembers the medical supplies humans provided during their plague outbreak. The Aquan deep swimmers recall how human vessels guided them through the asteroid field when their navigation failed. The silicon-based architects of Kepler Prime have not forgotten the rare Earth elements humans shared when their homeworld's core began failing." Sarah watched in amazement as more and more species were added to the list. Each entry came with a detailed record of the favor performed and the current military or resource contribution being offered in return. "This is incredible, but the hegemony has over 2,000 capital ships. Even with all these allies, we might not be able to match their firepower." Zeptai's wings created a pattern that Sarah was beginning to recognize as the Catherian equivalent of a smile. "Ambassador, you are still thinking too small. This is not about matching the hegemony's military strength. This is about showing them what happens when someone threatens a species that has spent centuries making friends instead of enemies." He activated a final display that made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. It showed the complete scope of the response force gathering in human space. Not just military vessels, but scientific ships, trading fleets, exploration vessels, and even civilian transports modified for combat. Hundreds of species, thousands of ships, all converging to repay debts of gratitude to humanity. "The message being sent to the hegemony is simple," Zeptai continued. "Attack humanity, and you declare war on half the galaxy. We have already transmitted this information to their leadership, along with detailed records of every favor that led to this alliance." Sarah found herself speechless. She had given 5,000 credits to help a small merchant save his daughter, never expecting anything in return. Now that simple act of kindness had revealed a vast network of loyalty and gratitude that humanity had unknowingly built across the stars. "There's something else," Zeptai said quietly. "The data we've compiled reveals a pattern that even we find remarkable. In the past century, humanity has performed over 47,000 documented acts of interstellar aid, assistance, and rescue operations. Not one of these was performed with the expectation of repayment. Not one was contingent on political alliance or trade agreements." He paused, letting the weight of those numbers sink in. "Your species doesn't just store every favor, Ambassador Chen. You create them freely, constantly, without expectation. You have built the most powerful alliance in galactic history entirely by accident, simply by being decent to others." Sarah looked out through the observation window at the stars beyond, knowing that scattered among them were thousands of beings preparing to risk their lives for humanity. All because humans had chosen kindness over calculation, compassion over conquest. The hegemony was about to learn that there were consequences to threatening a species that had made the galaxy a better place, one small act of kindness at a time. And those consequences were already in motion, gathering momentum like an unstoppable wave of gratitude and friendship that would reshape the balance of power among the stars forever. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UES Constellation, watching through the main viewport as ships continued to arrive in the Terra Nova system. 3 days had passed since the Cytherian Consortium's revelation, and the sight before him still seemed impossible to believe. The Mjolnir Engineering Guild had arrived first, their massive construction vessels bristling with improvised weapons. Behind them came the sleek bioships of the Aquan Deep Swimmers, their hulls gleaming like living pearls. The geometric crystalline vessels of the Silicon Architects hung in perfect formation, their surfaces refracting starlight into rainbow patterns. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the incoming fleet," Communications Officer Torres reported. "The Deltan Research Collective is requesting permission to dock their mobile laboratory with our command station." Webb nodded, still trying to process the magnitude of what was happening. "Granted. What's their contribution to the Defense Force?" "They're offering their gravitational manipulation technology, sir. Apparently, they've developed new applications since we helped rescue their research vessel from the black hole incident." That rescue had cost humanity the destroyer UES Intrepid and 12 crew members. At the time, it had seemed like a terrible loss for minimal gain. The Deltans were scientists, not warriors, and their research seemed purely academic. Now, Webb was beginning to understand that the value of that sacrifice went far beyond any calculation his strategists could have made. Captain Elena Vasquez entered the bridge, carrying a data tablet that displayed the constantly updating list of arriving ships. "Admiral, we've got representatives from species I've never even heard of asking to join the defense. The Ethereal Collective just materialized 3 of their phase ships at the edge of the system." Webb frowned. "The Ethereals? I thought they were a myth." "Apparently not. Their commander says humanity once provided them with solid matter when their home dimension was destabilizing. They've been existing partially outside normal space-time ever since, but they remember the debt." Before Webb could respond, the main display activated to show an incoming transmission from Earth. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared, now wearing the insignia of the newly formed Interspecies Coordination Command. "Admiral Webb, I trust you're adjusting to our new circumstances?" Webb gestured toward the viewport where yet another group of alien vessels was taking position. "It's overwhelming, Admiral. We've got over 800 ships from 63 different species, and more arriving every hour. Some of these beings are offering technologies we've only dreamed about." "That's not the most remarkable part," Chen replied. "The hegemony just transmitted their response to our coalition. They're claiming this is all elaborate theater, that these species will abandon humanity the moment real fighting begins. They're still planning to attack in 48 hours. Webb wasn't surprised. The hegemony had built their entire culture around the belief that strength was the only currency that mattered in the galaxy. The idea that kindness could create lasting alliances was fundamentally alien to their worldview. "What they don't understand," Chen continued, "is that we're not just dealing with political allies. These are people whose children are alive because of human medical aid, whose worlds weren't destroyed because human ships carried them to safety, whose entire civilizations exist because humans chose to help instead of exploit." A new alarm sounded on the bridge, but it wasn't a threat warning. It was the arrival signal, indicating that another massive ship had just dropped out of hyperspace. Through the viewport, Webb watched as something truly extraordinary took shape. It was a Leviathan-class vessel of the Titanic Collective, a species of silicon-based beings whose ships were literally grown rather than built. This particular vessel was over 15 kilometers long, its hull covered in what appeared to be organic armor that pulsed with internal light. "This is World Singer Corvash of the Titanic Collective," came a voice that seemed to resonate through the ship's hull itself. "We come to honor the debt owed to the humans who saved our seedling colony on Kepler 442b. Captain Vasquez checked her historical databases. "Sir, that incident was over 30 years ago. A human agricultural ship diverted its entire cargo to provide nutrients for a failing Titanic colony. The official report said it was a minor humanitarian mission." Webb was beginning to see the pattern. What humans considered minor acts of decency, other species viewed as extraordinary examples of selflessness. The cultural gap was staggering. Most galactic civilizations operated on strict reciprocity principles. Favors were recorded, debts were tracked, and nothing was given without expectation of return. Humanity seemed to be the only species that helped others simply because it was the right thing to do. "Admiral," Torres called out, "I'm receiving a priority transmission from the Hegemony Fleet. They want to speak with our commanding officer." Webb straightened his uniform. "Put them through." The main display shifted to show Supreme War Commander Thoktar, the Hegemony's most feared general. His reptilian features were arranged in what Webb recognized as contempt. His 4 arms crossed over his armored chest. "Human Admiral," Thoktar's voice was a mixture of growl and hiss, "your pathetic display of weakness changes nothing. When our fleets arrive, your so-called allies will scatter like frightened insects. The galaxy will see that your species' softness makes you unworthy of the territories you claim." Webb felt a calm settle over him that he hadn't expected. "Supreme Commander, I think you misunderstand the nature of the force assembled here. These aren't political allies bound by treaties. These are beings whose lives, families, and entire civilizations owe their existence to human kindness." "Kindness?" Thoktar's laugh was like breaking glass. "Kindness is weakness. Strength is the only truth in this universe. Your coalition will crumble the moment they realize the cost of opposing the hegemony." "You're welcome to test that theory," Webb replied evenly. "But I should warn you that you're not just facing military forces. The Catherian Consortium has shared the complete records of human aid and assistance with every member of this coalition. They all know exactly what they're fighting to protect." Thoktar leaned forward, his predatory eyes narrowing. "What are you implying?" "Human. I'm saying that you've made the mistake of threatening a species that spent centuries making friends instead of enemies. You're not facing a military alliance, Commander. You're facing a family reunion." The transmission cut off with Thoktar's roar of rage still echoing through the bridge. Webb turned to address his crew, but was interrupted by another incoming message. This time, it was from Ambassador Zeptai of the Catherian Consortium, his delicate features showing an expression Webb was learning to read as excitement. "Admiral Webb, I thought you should know that the Hegemony has just made a critical error in judgment. They transmitted their conversation with you to their entire fleet as proof of human arrogance. What they actually accomplished was confirming to every species in this coalition that the Hegemony views kindness as weakness." Webb felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of response is that generating?" Zeptai's wings fluttered in the pattern that indicated satisfaction. "The Ethereal Collective has just offered to phase portions of your fleet partially out of normal space-time, making them effectively immune to conventional weapons. The Silicon architects are constructing defensive platforms using technology they've never shared with anyone. The Aquan deep swimmers are preparing to demonstrate gravitational manipulation techniques that could disable ships without harming their crews." The implications were staggering. These species weren't just offering military support. They were sharing their most advanced technologies, their most closely guarded secrets, all because humanity had shown them kindness without expecting anything in return. "There's more," Zeptai continued. "The Delton Research Collective has completed their analysis of hegemony fleet compositions and has identified critical weaknesses in their ship designs. The Mjolnir Engineering Guild is offering to upgrade your weapon systems with technology that's 3 generations ahead of anything the hegemony possesses." Webb looked around his bridge, seeing the amazement on his crew's faces as they listened to the conversation. They were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. Not just a military alliance, but a technological sharing agreement that was transforming humanity's defensive capabilities in real time. "Admiral," Torres called out, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the Coalition fleet. It looks like multiple species are beginning some kind of coordinated technology transfer." Through the viewport, Webb could see streams of light moving between ships as different species began sharing their most advanced systems: Catherian information networks, Mjolnir engineering techniques, Aquan biotechnology, ethereal phase manipulation, and dozens of other contributions were being integrated into a collective defense grid. Captain Vasquez stared at her displays in wonder. "Sir, our defensive capabilities just increased by orders of magnitude. The Coalition isn't just offering to fight alongside us. They're creating an entirely new form of interspecies cooperation." Webb realized that they were witnessing the birth of something far more significant than a military alliance. The hegemony's attack had inadvertently catalyzed the formation of what could become the galaxy's first truly cooperative civilization, built on principles of mutual aid rather than conquest. The irony was perfect. In trying to prove that human kindness was weakness, the hegemony had created the exact conditions necessary for that kindness to demonstrate its true power. They had forced dozens of species to come together and share their greatest achievements, all in service of protecting the one civilization that had helped them without expecting anything in return. In 36 hours, the hegemony fleet would arrive expecting to face a collection of weak allies bound together by sentiment. Instead, they would encounter something entirely outside their understanding. A coalition of civilizations united by gratitude and armed with the combined technological achievements of half the galaxy. The hegemony was about to learn that kindness wasn't weakness. It was the foundation of a strength they couldn't even comprehend. The hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace exactly as predicted, their 2,000 ships forming perfect battle formations against the star field. Supreme War Commander Thoktar had brought the full might of the militant coalition, confident that raw firepower would scatter the human alliance like leaves before a storm. What he found waiting for him defied every military doctrine he had ever studied. Admiral Webb watched from the bridge of the Constellation as the enemy fleet took position. Around him, the Coalition Defense Force maintained their positions in what appeared to be a loose, disorganized formation. To hegemony eyes, it must have looked like amateur military planning. They couldn't have been more wrong. "Admiral," Communications Officer Torres reported, "the hegemony flagship is transmitting on all frequencies. Supreme Commander Thoktar wants to speak with you." Webb nodded calmly. Behind him, representatives from over 60 species worked together at modified control stations, their different physiologies accommodated by hastily constructed interface systems. The bridge had become a living symbol of interspecies cooperation. "Put him through." Thoktar's reptilian features filled the main display, his predatory satisfaction evident despite the alien expressions. "Human Admiral, I see your collection of misfits and weaklings. Impressive numbers, but numbers mean nothing without the will to use them." Webb glanced at Ambassador Zeptai, whose compound eyes reflected inner amusement. The Catherian had spent the past day coordinating intelligence from sources throughout the hegemony fleet, providing real-time tactical information that was proving invaluable. "Supreme Commander," Webb replied, "before we begin, I want you to understand exactly what you're attacking. This isn't just a military alliance. Every ship out there represents lives saved, worlds protected, or civilizations preserved by human intervention. You're not facing hired mercenaries or political allies. You're fighting beings who remember kindness. Thoktar's laugh was a harsh bark. Your sentimentality disgusts me. Let me show you what real strength looks like. The transmission ended, and immediately the hegemony fleet opened fire. 2,000 capital ships unleashed their full arsenal simultaneously, their combined firepower enough to crack planets. Energy beams, plasma torrents, and kinetic projectiles filled the space between the fleets in a display of devastating military might. Then something impossible happened. The attack simply stopped working. World Singer Corvash of the Titanic Collective had positioned his massive bioship directly in the path of the main assault. As the weapon's fire struck his vessel's hull, the organic armor began to pulse with absorbed energy, converting the incoming damage into power for the ship's defensive systems. "Fascinating," came Corvash's rumbling voice across all channels. "The hegemony's weapons operate on principles of brute force rather than elegance. Our bio-armor finds their energy quite nourishing." Simultaneously, the ethereal collective activated their phase manipulation technology. Dozens of human ships flickered in and out of normal space-time, becoming temporarily immune to physical damage while maintaining their ability to return fire. The geometric vessels of the Silicon architects began projecting gravitational fields that deflected incoming projectiles, their crystalline hulls refracting energy weapons into harmless light displays. The Aquan deep swimmers demonstrated their mastery of fluid dynamics by creating localized space-time distortions that caused enemy missiles to curve away from their targets and impact empty space. Meanwhile, the Mjolnir Engineering Guild's upgraded weapon systems began responding with precision strikes that seemed to ignore conventional defensive systems entirely. Supreme Commander Thoktar watched in growing disbelief as his overwhelming first strike accomplished virtually nothing. The coalition fleet had absorbed the full might of the hegemony's opening assault and emerged not only unharmed, but apparently stronger than before. "What is this sorcery?" he demanded over the communication channels. It was Ambassador Zeptai who answered, his delicate voice carrying across the battlefield with calm authority. "This is what happens when dozens of civilizations share their most advanced technologies in service of a common cause. What you're witnessing is the combined scientific achievement of half the galaxy, unified in defense of the species that helped them reach these heights." The battle was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Rather than a clash between opposing military forces, it became a demonstration of cooperative versus competitive civilization. The hegemony fought as individual ships in loose coordination, each species maintaining its own tactics and technologies. The coalition fought as a single organism, their diverse capabilities integrated into strategies that no single species could have conceived. Captain Vasquez monitored the tactical displays with wonder. "Sir, the Deltan Research Collective has identified optimal target points on every hegemony vessel. They're transmitting precise firing solutions to the entire fleet simultaneously." Webb nodded, watching as coalition ships began executing coordinated strikes with mathematical precision. The Deltan's gravitational research had revealed structural weaknesses in hegemony ship designs that could be exploited with minimal force, allowing the coalition to disable enemy vessels without causing unnecessary casualties. "Admiral," Torres called out, "I'm receiving distress signals from multiple hegemony ships. They're reporting system failures, power losses, and—" He paused, looking confused. "Sir, they're reporting that their weapons are being transformed into medical facilities." Webb turned to the Catherian representative at the intelligence station. "Ambassador Zeptai?" The Catherian's wings fluttered with what Webb now recognized as satisfaction. The Mjolnir Engineering Guild specializes in adaptive technology. They have developed nanite systems that can reconfigure enemy weapons into humanitarian equipment. Rather than destroying hegemony ships, we are converting them into hospital vessels. The implications struck Webb like a physical blow. The coalition wasn't just defeating the hegemony militarily. They were demonstrating the same philosophy that had created this alliance in the first place. Instead of destroying their enemies, they were transforming them into something that could help rather than harm. On the main display, Supreme Commander Thoktar's flagship was surrounded by coalition vessels, but instead of firing their weapons, they were projecting some kind of energy field around his ship. The hegemony commander appeared on screen again, but his expression had changed from confidence to confusion. "What are you doing to my vessel?" he demanded. It was World Singer Corvash who answered, his massive bio-ship moving closer to the hegemony flagship. "We are demonstrating something your people have never experienced, Commander. We are showing you mercy." The energy field surrounding Thoktar's ship began to pulse with gentle light. The ethereal collective had created a temporal stasis bubble around the flagship, not to destroy it, but to give its crew time to witness what was happening to the rest of their fleet without fear of immediate destruction. Across the battlefield, hegemony ships were being systematically disabled and converted. Weapons were transformed into medical bays, armor was restructured into environmental systems, and communication arrays were upgraded to facilitate peaceful contact rather than military coordination. The Aquan deep swimmers used their biotechnology to heal any crew members injured in the initial exchange, while the Silicon architects provided enhanced life support systems that would keep the disabled ships functional indefinitely. "This is impossible," Thoktar whispered, his voice carrying across all channels. "You had the power to destroy us completely. Why are you helping us instead?" Ambassador Sarah Chen's voice joined the conversation from Earth, her transmission reaching every ship in both fleets. "Because that's what humans do, Commander. We help. It's not a strategy or a tactic. It's who we are." Webb watched as the last of the hegemony ships was safely disabled and converted. Over 2,000 vessels that had arrived planning conquest had been transformed into mobile aid stations, research laboratories, and communication hubs. Not a single life had been lost. Not a single ship had been destroyed. "The Catherian Consortium has prepared a complete record of this engagement," Zeptai announced. "It will be transmitted to every civilization in the galaxy as proof that cooperation achieves what conquest cannot." Supreme Commander Thoktar stared at his transformed fleet, his worldview crumbling before his eyes. "You could have ruled us. Your technology, combined with this alliance, could have conquered half the galaxy. Why didn't you?" Webb found himself smiling as he answered. "Because we don't want to rule anyone, Commander. We want to help everyone. There's a difference." The ethereal collective's temporal stasis field around the hegemony flagship began to dissipate. But instead of freedom to resume combat, Thoktar found his ship surrounded by coalition vessels broadcasting medical assistance, engineering support, and offers of peaceful cooperation. "Your choice is simple," Ambassador Chen's voice continued. "You can attempt to continue this conflict with ships that are now designed to heal rather than harm, or you can accept our offer to transform the hegemony from a military alliance into a cooperative one." World Singer Corvash's bio-ship moved closer to the flagship, its hull pulsing with gentle, welcoming light. "The Titanic Collective offers to share our bio-ship growing techniques. The hegemony could learn to cultivate vessels that create life rather than destroying it." One by one, representatives from each species in the coalition offered their knowledge, their technologies, and their friendship to the defeated hegemony forces. The Silicon architects offered to teach crystalline construction techniques that could build worlds instead of weapons. The Aquan deep swimmers shared bioremediation technology that could restore damaged ecosystems. The Mjolnir Engineering Guild provided plans for adaptive manufacturing systems that could transform military equipment into civilian infrastructure. Supreme Commander Thoktar sat in silence for long minutes, processing the magnitude of what had been offered. His entire civilization was built on the principle that strength came through conquest and domination. The coalition was demonstrating that true strength came from lifting others up rather than tearing them down. "If we accept these offers," he said finally, his voice subdued, "what do you expect in return?" Webb exchanged glances with the various alien representatives on his bridge. They had discussed this possibility, but the answer was unanimous. "Nothing," Webb replied. "We expect nothing in return except that you remember this kindness and perhaps pass it along to others someday." Thoktar's 4 arms fell to his sides. "You are either the most naive species in the galaxy or the most terrifying." "We prefer to think of ourselves as optimistic," Webb said with a smile. 6 months later, Admiral Webb stood on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, a massive space facility built through the combined efforts of over 100 different species. Below him, ships from across the galaxy came and went, carrying not weapons but knowledge, supplies, and friendship between worlds. The former hegemony fleet had been completely transformed, their ships now serving as mobile hospitals, research vessels, and diplomatic courier services. Supreme Commander Thoktar had taken a new title, Coordinator of Interspecies Assistance, overseeing the distribution of aid to worlds in need. Ambassador Zeptai approached, his delicate wings catching the light from the station's central star simulator. "The final tallies are complete, Admiral. The coalition response has inspired 237 additional species to join the Cooperative Alliance. The galaxy has never seen such widespread peaceful cooperation." Webb nodded, watching as a group of young beings from different species worked together to construct a new communication relay. Human children worked alongside young Catherians, Deltans, and even juvenile members of the former hegemony species, their natural cooperation, unmarred by the prejudices of their elders. "You know what the most remarkable part is?" Webb mused. "It all started because Sarah Chen had 5,000 credits and saw someone who needed help." Zeptai's compound eyes reflected the starlight as his wings formed the pattern that indicated deep satisfaction. "Humans truly are unique, Admiral. Most species calculate the cost of kindness. Your people simply see the cost of not being kind as too high to bear." Webb smiled, thinking of the thousands of human ships now spread across the galaxy, not as conquerors or rulers, but as friends, teachers, and helpers. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or their technology. It was in their refusal to let kindness be seen as weakness, and their absolute commitment to storing every favor in their hearts rather than their accounts. In a universe that often seemed cold and hostile, humans had proven that warmth and compassion could reshape the very foundations of civilization itself. The favor had been returned, but like all acts of true kindness, it had created new debts of gratitude that would ripple across the stars for generations to come. And somewhere in that vast network of friendship and cooperation, the next small act of human kindness was already being performed, creating new bonds that would one day surprise everyone with their strength. The galaxy had learned that humans didn't just store every favor. They transformed them into something far more powerful. Hope for a better future, one act of kindness at a time.